Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Giusi. I'm an intuitive healer, um, and I talk about healing topics, spirituality. I talk about our subconscious programming, and I also share about like my journey with autism and stuff like that. However, today's topic is going to be about something that I think is really important, and it's about authenticity. Now, I talk about this all the time, how it's really important to show up authentically as you, and how the only way that we can truly connect with ourselves and other people is by showing up as ourselves, showing up authentically as who we are. However, there's something that needs to be discussed about that. It's very easy to say, like, you need to be this way. This is the best way to be. This is the only way that we should be if we really want to connect with people. That's wonderful. It's great. It's truth. But we need to talk about the barriers that stop people from showing up authentically. What causes people to put like these masks and stuff like that? And as someone who has been masking my whole life, um, due to autism and other things, but even not if you're not autistic, there's people who mask for different things. Like we know narcissists, they mask, they wear a mask for various reasons, and we're not defending them or anything. But people will wear masks and show up inauthentically as themselves in various different situations for various different reasons. So let's talk about that a little bit. So, what stops people from showing up authentically as themselves? Well, in short, let's go back to the subconscious programming stuff. There was some point in their life, usually when they were younger. It doesn't have to always be, but usually that's what ends up happening, is that there was something that happened, occurred, multiple things usually, when they were younger, and were showing up authentically as themselves was not received well. It wasn't safe. They were maybe ridiculed for it. They were not accepted. They were rejected, just like all these different things. And so, you showing up authentically as yourself was something that was not okay. For me, for instance, because I was very sensitive as a child, my earlier my first memories of me showing up as myself was because I had select mutism, where I was very shy and quiet already naturally on my own. And so my only experience with showing up authentically was when I was really upset about things. I would have like really big meltdowns, and I would cry and wail and stuff like that. And I remember being severely punished for it in some instances. And so I learned that showing up when I was really upset or sharing those parts of me were not safe. In school, I later learned that some of my more quirky traits and the ways that I showed up that were different, because, okay, I'm just going to flat out say it. When I was growing up, I did not care about following the crowd and doing things because it was popular or because other people were doing it. I was never that girl, and I'm never going to be that girl. And so I did whatever I wanted to. And I used to get teased. I remember one girl and specific, I can speak today, right? One girl in particular, she used to tease me a lot. We had a very small school with a very select group of people, and um, we kind of went to school with the same people from like JK to like grade 6, I'd say. Actually, up until even in grade 7 and 8, a lot of those people came to school with us. So one girl used to tease me a lot, and I even got like in trouble one time in class because of her, something I didn't do. And so, one example is like she used to make fun of me, behind my back, always behind my back. My friend at the time was a jerk because she would tell me these things. She shouldn't have told me. But I remember getting these boots when I was in grade 7. My birthday was late, so I like a year younger than everyone. But I remember getting these boots. I must have been around 12 years old or something, 11 or 12. And they were like riding boots because I wanted riding boots so badly. And they were like black with a dark brown stripe at the end, and they were like the tall ones, like go below your knee and stuff like that. And so I remember when it was snowing and stuff, and I had them outside of my pants. And back then it was like you didn't wear your boots outside of your pants. You tucked them under your boots. That was the style. I was born in the 70s. So this is probably like late 80s when this happened, like at the end of the 80s, maybe like 91 or something like that. And so I'm wearing these boots outside of my jeans. And she like teased me about it, and then I was like ridiculous. So this happened to me a lot. So I learned that showing up myself, like my personality and my ways, weren't necessarily like I guess welcomed by other people, that they were odd and that I was odd and that I was weird. I was teased for being a brainer, and that I wasn't good at having conversation with people at all. Like I didn't have conversations with people, and just like other things in my family, I was like, with my parents, it's just like a very specific situation there. And so essentially what I'm getting to is that I wasn't able to show up as myself. So at some point in your life, you had these things, whether you were bullied, shamed, ridiculed, rejected, punished. It doesn't matter what that looks like for you, but they all equally do the same thing. They make us feel like it is unsafe to show up as who we are. They make us feel scared to show up as who we are. It makes us feel insecure to show up as who we are. It makes us feel so many horrible, awful things. And the more we continue to show up as not who we are, the harder it feels the older we get. And so for a lot of people, I'm very lucky that I've always been, despite all those things, even though like I didn't have a voice, I was quiet and shy, I was still able to show up authentically as myself in other ways. As I started rebelling when I was like 16, 17 and had pink, purple hair, and that never changed till ever. This is like the first time that my hair hasn't been dyed in many years. But I spent my whole life with wild out there hairstyles and fashion and design, and just like being really quirky and stuff like that, because I allowed myself to shine through in different ways, that personality and all that stuff, which is great. I feel fortunate for that. However, there were still many parts of me that I wasn't able to show up authentically as me. I couldn't be who I wanted to be. I had to pretend to be this very, very proper and correct like person. I very reserved and all this like very professional, and this idea of who I should be kind of thing in other environments and stuff like that. Whereas like if you saw me in person, like my sisters are the only ones who saw like the weirdest version of me. Everybody else never saw that version of me. But I'm learning how to let that version of me out more, and trying to let that show up more in my life and in my little parts of it in my videos and things. So although I feel like it was kind of obvious for some of the people, I look at these things from my past and I'm like, anyways, so the barriers, got distracted there. The barriers of why we might do something like that is because it's unsafe. And so when we've attached a version of ourselves to something, and we've kind of like, I guess you can say you've built an empire or something, and you have an entire friend group, a career, a life that is based off of this version of you that you have shown up your whole life, which wasn't you authentically. The fear of like rejection and judgment is so high, because at the root of that is like our feelings of worthiness and value, feeling valuable, feeling that we love ourselves, and all the self-esteem issues and things like that. So at the root of that, we have all of those things occurring deep below the surface. And so when we've created an entire lifetime, like I said, based on a version of ourselves that's not authentic, the idea of stripping back the layers and showing up as who we are is terrifying. It's terrifying. So it's all well and good that we tell people, show up authentically as you. But that's terrifying for a lot of people. I realize that. Maybe not as terrifying for me, but I can understand and appreciate why it would be terrifying for most people. It is a terrifying thing. It is terrifying to strip away those layers and be vulnerable and to show up as yourself. And so I think showing a bit more compassion towards one another, a little bit more kindness and softness to one another is helpful. I think people need to feel safe in order to rid themselves of those layers and those veneers or whatever you want to call it. They have to feel safe to do that. And I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't feel like a very safe world right now in any way, in any shape or form. I'm sure you're well aware of everything that's happening everywhere, not just like with the wars and the conflicts that are happening in the world, but even just in our everyday lives. Like there's so much conflict and upheaval and chaos in our lives. And so in order for people to show up authentically as themselves, we need to create that safety with them. And it's not that I'm required to create safety for everyone here, but I can do that for the people I care about and I love. That's what I can do. I can show up for the people that are around me. I can be the soft place for them to land and for them to drop their armor and to not judge and look at them weird when they show up as themselves. And you know what? I have a secret for you. Their authentic self is usually like their personality that they had when they were like a child, who that person was. The best version of themselves as a child is usually what their most authentic self is like. It's usually very similar to that version of them. So, yes, we definitely have to move to a place of more authenticity and vulnerability and all that stuff. But we have to understand that that's not an easy place to be. That is a very difficult place to be for most people. And so I think just kind of understanding that and having the patience for that, the empathy for that, and all of that is really, really important. And I think that we need to kind of like create the space for that for one another. And like I said, we're not responsible for other people's healing, their triggers, or any of that stuff. But at the same time, we can be mindful of the people that we immediately like care for and love and stuff like that, and be mindful of that with them, and being someone that they can feel safe to drop their barriers and armor with. So, what's some things that you can do if you're that person who wants to show up more authentically? Well, you can sign up with me and do my hypnotherapy program. It's excellent and it's very, very successful and it works really well. Even doesn't have to be with me, but if you sign up with doing hypnosis is wonderful for creating new patterns of conscious programming because it's something that really works. But that's one of the biggest, easiest ways that you can create new patterns and learn how to drop into like your authentic self and just kind of be in that space. But the other part of that is also like working on removing yourself from the places that are not safe for you to show up authentically as you, the places where you had to show up in that way. So for instance, if your parents expected you to be this person and have this life, this career, you have to show up this way, and you kind of did everything according to other people's expectations of you, society's expectations of you, or whatever, then you may have adopted a personality that is not really yours, your own. And so moving away from that life is not easy. You have to kind of like, I don't want to say abandon, but finding a way to sever like that, I guess you could say, umbilical cord from that is really hard. It's really hard. It's shedding an entire identity, like that's been someone's identity their whole life, or for a great part of their life. And so that takes time to process that and to create new connections and new pathways and all that stuff, and grieving that the loss of the identity of who they thought they were and all that stuff, and just moving away from that, creating boundaries. There's just so many things that come with that. But in order to be our authentic selves, we need to create the environment where we can be our authentic selves. And a huge part of that is removing ourselves from the places where we were not able to show up authentically as us, and where we had to create this persona to thrive and exist within the realms of, those environments. So yes, let's be more authentic. Let's do all that. But let's demolish all the places that required us to show up inauthentically as ourselves. We don't want those places anymore in our lives. They're canceled. No. But honestly, like, I think that I love that we're having conversations. I'm seeing lots of more posts about like people being authentic. I talk about it. I've been talking about it a lot for a long time, but I think that we should acknowledge that it's not simple. That it's not simple by any means to all of a sudden drop your mask and be this person, because maybe it won't be as unsafe as it was when you were a child, but there will definitely still be some of those elements present here in this day and age, like in this present moment in your life, that there will be some things that you will have to lose, unfortunately, sometimes with some people, some more than others, right? They will have more to lose by dropping those that mask and that armor, those barriers and stuff like that. So wherever you are in your journey, if you're someone who's able to show up authentically, that's amazing. That's great. I love it. Then you can be someone who is the space holder for everyone and hold that space for others. And that's amazing. For the other people who are still working on it, be gentle with yourselves. It's not a linear thing. It's not like, I'm authentic now, everything's great. No, you're going to have little pockets where you'll get to show up authentically as you, and sometimes, and then eventually it'll grow and grow until you can finally mostly show up as yourself authentically. Because unfortunately, there's going to be some times where you might have to still show up in that way, in mask, or put on your this persona to interact in certain situations. I think that's going to be inevitable, unfortunately. But the whole goal and idea, I think, is to get to a place where you're not primarily living from that space, where you're just going to be like predominantly in your authentic self, in that space of being you and showing up authentically as you. Anyways, let me know your thoughts and comments on this, and if you do want to work with me and work on how to show up more as authentically as you, and to create new programming on how to step into your beingness and stuff like that, let me know. Send me a message and we can do that. Otherwise, I hope you're having a beautiful day, and that you're being kind to yourself, and that you're resting and speaking lovely to yourself always, every day, always. Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.